Poker is awesome. It's great.
Poker is absurd.
You know, where else in any other sport that you love, you know, can you play in the biggest, you know, event in the world?
Joe Blow can turn $10 into $1 million.
Poker's a fun game that requires a certain amount of skill, a certain amount of bluff, and a whole lot of luck.
You don't have to be physically strong. You don't have to be extremely intelligent. It's an everyday game for an everyday man.
It's a roller coaster. It is.
Poker is great when you win and horrible when you lose.
Poker is good, bad, and very ugly.
Poker is something you should do for fun and not for living.
It's a living. It's you know, they say it's a tough way to make an easy living.
You know, and that's what I love it.
It's like sex. Everybody thinks they're the best, but only a few know what they're doing.
Welcome back to the luxurious Atlantis Resort and Casino, Bahamas, for another episode of the Party Poker Canadian Poker Championship. 100 players began the journey, including professional poker players TJ Kluche, JJ Liu, and Dan Alsbach. All of them are gone, all of them victim to the young internet players that are currently running the leaderboard. The King, Weber King Kang, returns to the feature table, along with Canadian favorites Jeff Spanky Cheevers and Toronto David Matthew, today on the Party Poker Canadian Poker Championship.
Welcome to the Party Poker Canadian Poker Championship here at the Atlantis Resort in the Bahamas. When you see the full access logo right here, you are getting unprecedented behind-the-scenes footage from the glitz at the head table to intimate moments with the players.
If I gave a new player a tip, what would it be? I guess to play with patience.
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 Patience. Be patient.
Absolutely to be patient.
You got me.
If I could give a beginning player one tip, I'd say just fold, because it's very easy to get involved in a hand and then get a lot of chips invested in a hand that you have no business playing. So I think patience and being able to grind it out.
I wouldn't tell them anything because they're just going to beat you if you give them all your good tips. So don't tell a new player anything.
There is our chip leader, Weber Kang, at the Party Poker Canadian Poker Championship. Welcome back to the feature table. We are in level 6, the small blind of 200, the big blind of 400, and an ante of 50 chips. Glenn Blankenship. He is the big blind. Rick Long on the left, under the gun. Ace-8 offsuit. And he will fold that. Shannon Shore folds. Larry Nicholas with pocket nines. On his left, David Winters with a 4-6. The raise is to 4,000 from Larry Nicholas. Big slick for Jeff Spanky Cheevers. That's an overbet from Larry. You'd normally expect an opening raise about 1,200. He's gone 4,000. Spanky's moved all in, which is not surprising. He only has about 4,700 chips. Pocket tens for Glenn Blankenship in the big blind. He's going to fold. Good fold. You're facing a raise to 4,000 or a small re-raise to 4,700. Those guys have hands. One of them has a hand. Your tens could be in a world of pain. They're not in actuality, but they certainly... You would think that they are. Larry calls. Of course he does. He only owes 700 into a pot just over 9,000. Classic no-limit hold'em race. Big slick versus a smaller pocket pair of nines. Larry is a very small favorite. Spanky Cheevers is cheering for an ace or a king. Bingo for Spanky. Hits his king on the flop. Interestingly enough, also a 10 on the flop. Glenn Blankenship would have flopped a set, but of course he did fold. On the turn, a 6 keeps Spanky ahead. River doesn't help Larry, and Jeff Cheevers has doubled up. Our lone Canadian at the feature table doubles his stack to just over 10,000 chips. He's still well behind average. The average in the room, 20,000. That brings Spanky back up to 10,000. I tell you though, if you're sitting in his seat, that just feels like $1 million. You feel right back in the hunt. You were down almost to the felt. Now you've doubled up and gotten back in the game. You feel awesome. If you're Larry Nicholas, you took a 5,000 chip hit. You're feeling the sting, but you're still well in it. Larry still has about 15,000 chips left. Both Larry and Jeff will be experiencing a big adrenaline burn. Rick Long in the big blind with a king of diamonds, 8 of diamonds. Shannon Shore under the gun, ace 8 offsuit. He will fold. We saw Shannon win a pretty big one from Weber Kang a few hands ago. Jack of hearts, 7 of hearts. For our chip leader, Weber Kang, he's going to put in a raise with that hand. Jack 7 suited, not great, but you're a big stack. Perfectly legitimate raise. Put a little pressure on the blinds. Glenn Blankenship, pocket 4s in the small blind. Glenn calls, looking to flop a set of 4s and take a big pot off our chip leader. And Rick Long will also call with his king 8 of diamonds. 3 players to the flop. Weber the thief and both of the blinds. Flop of ace, king, king. Pretty big flop for Rick Long, who's flopped a set. He checks it. Weber will take a stab at it. He'll bet 1,900, hoping to pick up the pot right now. Of course, he has nothing. Glenn folds his pocket 4s. And Rick is just going to call. In part setting the trap, and in part he may actually be... No, he's not worried anymore. Quadzilla, baby. Quad kings for Rick. He checks. Weber checks. A jack on the river. Gives Weber a hand now. He's going to check one more time. Rick's really going to hope that Weber will bet an ace here. Weber does have the jack. He's going to show it down. Nice play, Weber. That's the right play. Rick reluctantly turns over his kings. Boy, you know, you could have put a bet in there at some point. But I guess he wouldn't have won any chips. Might have won a few on the river. A small bet might have got a call. I normally would be much more critical of how passive Rick was. But, you know, you got Weber behind you. He is the big stack. He is an aggressive player. The check on the river, not a bad play. Go fishing for some more chips out of Weber's stack. Didn't get any this time. Back to the action. The button now in seat 9 with Jeff Cheevers, Glenn Blankenship. Under the gun with ace, queen, offsuit. He's just going to limp in with that hand. You would normally expect a player to raise under the gun with that if he's going to play it. A jack of diamonds, 9 of hearts for Larry Nicholas. On Larry's left, pocket rockets for David Winters. Larry's moving all in with his jack 9 offsuit. It's an unusual play. He's moved 15,000 chips in to a pot that only contains 1,400. Odd play. He's called, of course, by the aces on his left, David Winters. Spanky folds.
Water.
This is not going to be a pleasant experience for Larry Nicholas when he sees those aces. Weber folds, big blind folds, and Glenn Blankenship under the gun gets rid of his ace-queen. This hand is a good example of the flaw with a giant overbet bluff like that. You'll win the pot a lot if you're Larry Nichols. Move in with your jack 9. But you're only winning 1,400 chips. You're exposing yourself to getting busted out of the tournament when a player wakes up with a hand. There's 4 players to act behind you. There's a limper under the gun. I think it was a bad play. And it turns out it was a horrible play because, in fact, he has been called by aces on his left. I can't help but wonder if the loss of 5,000